Tonight show we are talking about FIFA contracts, Matty Longstaff, Javier Manquillo and Andy Carroll, because they are going to be extended whether they like it or not. FIFA want free agents to have their contracts extended because of the situation with coronavirus at the moment, which, let us know what you think on that. We'll be talking about that. We're going to be joined by Eisha and also Jonny in tonight's show. Get your WhatsApp messages coming in 0747 649 7166. In the second section, Ginola, Robert or Ben Arfa. Who's the better player? Let us know. We want your comment, of course, via WhatsApp as well. And in the third section, we're going to have a look back at the 96 squad. We're going to value each player in today's market as well. As I've touched upon already, for people who were watching just before, we have had a couple of WhatsApp messages, so I'll read them back out. And the first one is from Jack, and he wanted to talk about a little bit on the takeover and the situation with the French journalist from Eurosport, saying that the deal is going to be done. Look, I'm about 20 against 80. I know Sam's 50-50. It's what you believe and how you interpret it. It's for me, I'm wait until you see it, Jack. Wait until you see them going to St James's Park, whoever it may be. I think they've then up momentum. I mean, Sky haven't even acknowledged it at all. They're not even acknowledging the paper talk. They don't even want to get involved this time around, and that's quite rare from Sky's point of view. And that quite leads me nicely on to the second question, which leads me on to, there was no name, just asking what kind of jobs we do at the moment. So we do a mixture of all sorts. So we've got someone who works in Ladbrokes, cheeky restaurants. I'll give you a clue. Someone owns their own business. Eisha, obviously a lot of people know that's just in the TV industry at the moment as well. I work at Sky. There's a couple of lads that are, three now, include Julie as well, who are students. But first of all, obviously we want this show to be a bit of an upbeat video, so we want to get your comment in as well. And of course, like I say, for you that were listening or watching before, is that we've had a bit of sad news this week. Is Sam and Eisha sadly lost a member of their family as well. They don't need to be reminded. I just want to put that out. We haven't put it out on any social medias that myself are there for you two and the rest of Newcastle Fans TV. So I really do mean that. I've messaged them individually, privately, so I'm sorry to hear your loss. But also I want to pay a tribute to Peter Proudlock as well, who's been on our channel and hopefully comes on later this week to continue the quiz. Peter also lost his granddad as well. So again, my wishes are with all ears, including the rest of the team here at Newcastle Fans TV. So I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, so we're going to move on to the section one, where we're going to be talking about FIFA contracts. And let's just hope my broadband works this time. So stay tuned, here we go.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Hello everyone, thank you very much Lee for that lovely introduction. I'm here with Eisha and Lee, of course, like Lee would have mentioned. Obviously, all our thoughts are with everybody that's been in regards to COVID-19 and such a horrible disease, and obviously our thoughts are particularly with obviously Eisha, which I don't know if she'll mention, but in Sam as well, two people that have actually been deeply involved in this disease, and we'd like to wish all our best to everybody concerned. So we'll continue. This is the first part of the show. FIFA. They don't get mentioned too much of time with Newcastle United, but we're going to start with FIFA, and they've extended contracts from June, or the end of June rather, and this does impact Newcastle United quite a bit. Lee, first things first, FIFA had to do this, didn't they?
Yeah, because we don't know what's going to happen with the football season. Obviously, it was suspended indefinitely just last week, so who knows? I think we're starting to creep in a little bit of panic mode, because obviously, seen with the Belgian leagues, they've just completely scrapped it, and there's obviously talk with the Scottish Premier Leagues now, and the leagues below that they're going to promote and relegate certain teams as well, which isn't going down well. I think we're now starting to get a little bit panicky, because we need to start playing games. And I know it's difficult at the moment with COVID-19, but the longer it goes on and we don't restart in May, because I think May is probably the deadline. At any point in May, whether it's the end of May, middle of May, whatever, I think it's going to see more and more leagues shut down and just make a void, or promote and relegate, whatever. But I think, as I said last week as well, I think the first signs, if it's still the pandemic is still at the case in say 4 weeks, I think you'll probably play a couple of games behind closed doors as the numbers start to drop down.
So the EFL, Isha, have announced today, or as in Thursday I should say, that they don't want teams to actually go back into training until the 16th of May. So as we record this, it's about still 5.5, 6 weeks away. So the Premier League haven't announced anything like that, but it kind of almost agrees with Lee's point that you're looking still June, maybe mid-June, even late June, just before you even get some sort of football. So do you believe that behind closed doors is going to happen?
I'm not sure about behind closed doors. I just feel everyone is so against it. But I think as time goes on, all the professionals involved would much rather the league is resumed in some way or form. And I think it's looking more and more like a last resort. Whereas before it was a bit unclear. It will resume mid-April, and then it got pushed again, and then now this has given us a really clear indication on actually the magnitude of the problem and how it's really going to eat into our summer. So I think although the majority will be against it, I think if it's behind closed doors, then yeah, perhaps that's the most likely thing to happen. And if anything, if that's the only solution, people will take that rather than just cutting off the season as it ended.
I think that is the million-dollar question, is how longly can we keep this going for? Has there got to be a cut-off point?
It's one of them, and because obviously being selfish, being Newcastle fans, we're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and we haven't hit the... Every little fan has their own wishes. Like Liverpool fans want to win the title, Leeds will want to come up. Ours is the FA Cup. We're being selfish because we want our team to do well. And if we don't have an FA Cup quarter final, yes, it's not a bigger priority as in winning the league and so on, but that's what we're clinging on to, because effectively our season is almost done anyway. We probably need one more win, and that's us settled for the season from 9 or 10 games, and we're putting the hat on the FA Cup and have an upset. But the longer it goes on, like I say, I think it'll become more and more increasing. Like, for example, the Formula One, or they're considering having double race days, which is absolutely crazy. I think with the legal will get extended. I think it will do if it does come back. Like I say, I wouldn't be too surprised if there's a couple played behind closed doors, and then it opens up to maybe the stadium, half stadium, I don't know. But the longer it goes on, the more I think we'll worry, because we've already seen, like I say before, league shutting down. But I think the season will be pushed back. I think they'll probably go into late July, even possibly early August. And like I said in previous weeks, I think that you could still tailor-make the following season after that to fall in line with Qatar 2022, because that's in December. You could move the leagues around, and it's getting harder and harder. It really, really is. But because the weather's getting nicer as well, I'm just talking about everyday life. We've seen people play cricket in London and in a park and stuff like that. It's going to get more and more tougher for not just football, but sport and people in general, with the weather getting nicer.
I think the biggest concern initially was how contracts would work into this, and how, I mean, there's obviously several players who will be out of contract by June, and that was sort of the main concern, I feel, in that summer transfer window. But I think now this FIFA extension movement has happened, I think it's opened up the window of opportunity to really plan, like, resuming it from the summer onwards, whereas before this was only announced, I think, on Tuesday. Before this, it was very much up in the air, because it wasn't physically possible without, I mean, if players went up and left after their contracts were over, it would have been an extremely messy situation to resume the league in the summer. But with this in place, I just think it makes everything a lot easier, and there are so many more opportunities to actually get it going again. So I think it's played a really huge part in the pandemic. A positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And I think as well, Isha, you're talking about how this impacts players. Does this benefit the hierarchy of Newcastle even more, because they've got more time to decide whether the likes of Matty Longstaff deserves a better contract, Javier Manquillo, whether he deserves a contract? They're two players in particular. We'll touch more about them in a minute. But just in terms of the hierarchy, it's only a positive for them, isn't it?
100%, especially with, obviously we'll talk about Matty Longstaff in detail like you said, but I think in particular with Matty Longstaff's case, we've been sort of tortured for weeks and weeks on this back and forth, like contracts, has it been approved, there was a contract on the table, like pen hasn't been put to paper on that, and as far as I'm aware, the ball is in, I think so it's down to Lee Charnley to come back on an agreement with it, and I think if that is the case, extra time can only be a good thing. And if that's what we need to seal the deal and get it locked down, there'll be less sort of panic around it, because the media attention on Matty Longstaff at the moment does worry me. The European attraction is concerning for me, and the fact that it's taken us weeks upon weeks to actually finalise it. Now we have extra time. I'm just hoping that's a good thing before, he's gone and he's just snapped up by someone else. Like Marseille are interested in him. If he gets a first team offer from France, it would be very difficult for him to turn down.
Are you telling me that he would swap the lovely French warm weather for the northeast of England? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Eisha?
Yeah, I don't blame him.
No, in all seriousness, no, Lee. We'll go in individual players now, and we'll touch about the transfer window later on. But let's start with Matty Longstaff. He is the most talked about player in terms of this situation for Newcastle United. He's a young lad who's made a handful of Premier League games, but you can only look at I think he scored 3 goals for Newcastle, 2 against Manchester United. On his CV, or his very early Premier League CV, is very, very good. How much do Newcastle have to maybe pay a little bit more a week to keep him? Or do you believe that the club have pretty much gone, here's an offer, take it or leave it, we're not bothered if you go?
A lot of speculation around his agents though, wasn't there? Both him and Sean, that they've got new agents to try and thrash out a deal. So how much does that play into it? It's funny though, because since more and more of his talk of his new contract, he hasn't been involved at all. And for me, so far this season, he's a much better player than Bentleb. Bentleb has not impressed me at all. His best game was against a Championship side, and that tells you its own story. So I think it's harsh, first of all, for him just to be not even on the bench, just completely forgotten about. And does a contract play into a factor? Maybe, to some extent, but at the end of the day, he's probably the third best centre midfielder this season behind Shelvey and Hayden, for me. And he should be the next one to come in. I know he's a different type of player to his brother, and there'll always be comparisons for the rivalry between them. But I think how, if I was in the hierarchy and I was making that decision, I would give him a set fee of say 20 grand a week, which would be a massive increase because he's under a grand a week at the moment, isn't he? He's on 860 room or whatever it is. 20 grand a week, and if you hit this criteria in a year's time, you'll go up by 25, or if you get an England call up, it goes to 30, with like bonuses to try and push a player. Money isn't everything, of course not. I don't believe that Matty will want to move. Look, he's still walking around the place like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, he embraces it. Matty he'll not want to move. It'll be a devastating effect, because if he does move, does he have to restart all over again? Does he have to go back in, say, an under-23 side to try and impress? Or will be, because at the moment he's on the cusp of the first team, he's training with the first team. Will he have that if he goes to another Premier League side? Don't know.
It's $1 million question, but Eisha, if Matty signed a contract in January or February, do you think he would be at least be on the bench and probably coming on for substitute appearances? Do you think maybe the top of the board has said to say Steve Bruce, look, he hasn't signed a contract, he might not be part of your plans, he might want to look at the likes of Nabil Bentaleb and John Joe Shelby, etc.
So what are you asking, sorry? Would he make direct first team starts if we were to extend into like a full-on Newcastle contract?
Say if he signed the contract earlier on, say if he signed the contract that was initially gave to him in, say, January, February, do you think he would have maybe got more chance of playing, because he isn't getting a chance at the minute?
Oh, 100%. I think that plays a huge part in it, and it's all part of that journey and that mental aspect of I'm here to stay, and that plays a huge part in the coaching team as well. If that if he was a solid fixture in the team and his fate was determined by a piece of paper, I think, yes, he'd make more regular team starts, which he deserves, in my opinion. And Lee, I agree with what you said about Bentaleb. it's just, he's such a good option. He's one of our own. Like, everyone backs him. He is happy to be playing for Newcastle. Everything makes sense. The potential is there. He's proved himself so far this season, and it's not good to draw comparisons with his brother. I understand that. But if we are just taking a second to compare the potential and the, the exciting potential he has compared to his brother, that is something we need to grab with both hands. And if we haven't done it so far, I just think that it's played a part in the fact that he hasn't even been able to start as much as he should have been. And I think he would have, if this had been sorted out sooner, he would have. And then his journey as a regular first teamer he would have already been halfway through that journey, and he would have been comfortably in the dynamics of the first team squad. But because it's been so back and forth, that we haven't really allowed that to happen. And until it is sorted, he's not really going to play a part in the first team squad regularly. It's going to be here, there and everywhere.
I think also
agree.
I think also with Matty as well, we know that he's got the England under 20 call up, but I think if football was still going on, I think he would have had that under 21 call up by now.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I mean, if we look at who else there is in comparison to him, English talent, young English promising talent, he's a standout key player at the moment.
Yeah, I think Matty is someone we have to look at as hopefully as a long-term ambition. I know Sean's not out of contract at the end of the season, Lee, but I'm briefly going to touch on because he was always looking for an improved contract. And as you mentioned, the Longstaff have changed agents to try and get better contracts, try and get better deals. Because let's be brutally honest, I know Sean hasn't had the best of seasons, but he's still someone that has potential to do really well for Newcastle. I think maybe he has a slight position change in my personal opinion, but he's still someone that's vital for the success of Newcastle United in the future. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think all the young lads who are on the cusp or hanging around, Tom Allen, you might throw into that, if he starts to get a good pre-season. But with Sean, it hasn't been his greatest. Did we want rid of him? No, definitely not. Because he's had a dip of form. He's had a good bit of form. He's had a bit of dip of form. Young players, that happens. It does. So, you would want both of them in long-term deals. Sean, for me, you need to play a little bit further forward. I said this years ago when the channel first started, that Sean Longstaff will go on to be a star, because he was playing in the under-23s as a number 10. He was banging in 10, 11 goals in the first half of the season, got his loans out to the likes of down the Blackpool, Scotland and so on. But the problem that we're having the formation and stuff with Sean is that we don't really play with a number 10. We might change it if we continue with the 4-2-3-1. That'll give that midfielder the licence to get forward. But realistically, you probably want Miguel Almiron playing in that role ahead of Sean, because Almiron could do a little bit more. But yeah, to answer your question, you want both of them signed on long-term deals, and hopefully they're our future of our midfield.
Yeah, easy question for both of you. Matty Longstaff, will he stay? Yes or no? After whenever this season ends?
I'll say yes.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree, 100%. I think Sorry, what?
I was just going to say, I like the positivity.
Yeah, of course. Especially because he's one of our own. It means the world to have someone like the journeys he's had so far. If he can continue that journey at St James's Park, of course we would rather he was here than being shipped off to any European club. Like what I was saying about that French club, if they are seriously interested in him, and he would be replacing Maxime Lopez, who is meant to be making his way to the Premier League for, I think, Aston Villa or West Ham. If that happens and Matty is offered that first team start in the French division, he'll be straight off there. And I don't really know whether his new agent would play a huge part in that, but if he does have a ruthless, new agent that wants to just snap up the best deal he can, there'll be less sentiment there, and there'll be more, a business-minded approach on the contract. And if that does happen, I'll be quite disappointed, yeah.
Yeah, I think it all depends on, obviously, the next 10 games or so, and see how much game time they both get. But let's talk about another player. That's one of our own, like Eisha says, is Andy Carroll. He is out of contract at the end of this year. Obviously, depending on how many games he does play for Newcastle, it could trigger another year. the problem with Andy Carroll is that you can't keep him fit, and it's kind of been the same thing this season. It took about 6 or 7 games in the Premier League until you actually physically saw him. However, it's now got to a stage where he probably is fit now. Has he got 9, 10 games plus the FA Cup games to go, do you know what? If you want to try and get a contract, you need to make sure you're fit for the vast majority of these games.
He's not a starter, is he, really? But he is a game changer. So, you're losing 1-0 to Manchester City. You're 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go. You're going to look at Andy Carroll first, aren't you? To come off, completely change the dynamics. Go long ball if you have to, knock-ons. So, for me personally, I wouldn't have him. I would still keep him. If you're going to ask me that later, I would have him at the squad. But I wouldn't have him first or second choice. I'd have him as third choice if we're still playing one up top. I still think that we need another striker. I think Joe Linton needs competition. I think it's not healthy for him to keep playing and struggling. I know his game has gradually improved the last couple of months, but I would still I'll get rid of Muto, I'll get rid of Gale. Unfortunately, they're not playing. It's as simple as that. I know Isha's got a thing for Dwight Gale, I know, but sorry, but they both got to go. Cash in on them, and Andy Carroll, like I say, he will get injuries. That's why I wouldn't have him first or second choice. Have your main two, have him as something totally different. Maybe start him in a cup game, or like Sheffield United, we were all surprised that he started that one. But the odd one, yes, but he's totally different to what most people have in the Premier League. So I would keep him, but only third choice.
The case for defence, Isha, is Dwight Gale's probably less chance of being injury prone. He's had a few injuries this season, but if you look at maybe the last 10 years, the record speaks for itself. He does keep generally fit for most of the time. Why is that any club? It's Newcastle, West Brom, Crystal Palace, etc. So, is there better options than Andy Carroll at the club at the minute?
At the minute, no. I mean, in terms of our attack and the issues we had in the January transfer window, seeking, a new striker and everything we wanted and more, which never actually materialised. Yeah, we're still in the same predicament. There aren't many options there, and exactly what you said, Andy Carroll won't be fit. We can't depend on him for his fitness. We half expected that signing him, but I feel like more was expected from him. And I can't totally dismiss his contributions. He's made, I think 4 crucial assists. But I just don't think that he's worth... for example, now he's on pay-as-you-play, right? He's on that scheme. If we were to sort out his contract, he'd be on a wage. And I just think a wage would be better spent elsewhere. I just think if he was on pay-as-you-play, then it would be a different case because, it's money down the drain. His fitness isn't going to improve. And it's sad to say that he's reached that point in his career where we cannot guarantee starts out of him. I think in order to automatically extend his contract, he needed to play 20 games. So he's made 14 appearances. I don't know if it's mathematically possible for him to get those 20 starts if the Premier League resumes again. But even if it does, we can't guarantee that next season he would even make 14 appearances like he has because of his fitness. For me, I don't think he'd be worth keeping as much as I'd like him to stay. I think the money would be better spent elsewhere because all of the research and all of the work put into the January transfer window from the scouting team to get a striker, and I do feel they did put in work for that. I don't think it was totally dismissed. Of course, efforts were made, but when it came down to deadline day, we weren't able to get a striker that we need. I think work is happening now in the build-up to the summer transfer window, and I think all of that focus should go on new signings, and I'm sorry, but I don't think Andy Carroll fits into that, bearing in mind he won't be on pay-as-you-play, and that would be wasted money for me if he wasn't on pay-as-you-play.
Yeah, for sure. It's a sad state of affairs if you're looking from that side or that point of view, Lee. But I think the $1 million question is, do we see Andy Carroll in a black and white shirt next season? I know you've kind of answered it yourself in your own opinion, but if you're a betting man, where's your 50 pence going?
50 pence, how up a little bit. A pound bet. I think Bruce will keep him on. But what might entice him is get his coaching badges done. Could you offer him maybe a player/coach where he learns his development as he's still playing? Because if he's injured, he can still coach. So that might give him a bit of a momentum to look at the club and say, well, had a minute, does he want to go down that route? Because he's 31, he's only going to play 15, 20 games every season. That might entice him. But I think Bruce will do it. I think he will sign him. But like I say, I wouldn't have him as your first choice, first or second. But I would keep him as third choice. Is something totally different. Because I think as third choice, for me, he's better than Mutu at third choice. So I would. And it's an easy negotiation because he'll want to stay. And plus, his girlfriend's missus is pregnant. He'll not want to move again.
Yeah, obviously the family aspect is obviously very, very important for all footballers, has to be said. The last player I've got on my list is, I know we've got the likes of Carl Dahl and Rob Elliott that both out of contract at the end of the season. But in terms of main players, the last one on my list is Javier Manquillo. And there's contrasting opinions amongst the Newcastle fans TV. A lot of them, I'm sure there will be in the comments below. And make sure you get your WhatsApp messages. The later number will be on the screen, and you'll mention it at the start of the radio show as well. But Javier Manquillo, Eisha, is a player that divides opinions. Defensively, he's probably the best right back at the club. But the same thing with every right back at our football club. It seems they can't cross the ball, and attacking-wise, they're not the best. What's your general opinion of Javier Manquillo, and what are if you were deciding who should be at the football club, would Javier Manquillo be one of those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think when he's been fit, he has been key. He's that, like you said, he's probably one of the most reliable, dependable right backs in the squad. He's got balance in his play. He was, up until, I guess it was New Year's Day when he got injured, so he missed those 6 games, but then he started against Burnley and Southampton. And for me, I think in mid-February, Steve Bruce, he commented on Fede Fernandez and Manquillo's contracts, and he said that he's really, really keen to sort out their contracts. And when Fernandez's contract was sorted, I thought, okay, great. And now, like as it stands, I think it's Manquillo's time, because I can see why Steve Bruce would value them both in the squad. And if Fernandez, he has his contract sorted, surely Manquillo is worthy of the same. I think he should stay. I'm really keen for his contract to be sorted.
Lee, Javier Manquillo is not the best right back in the world, and no one will dispute that. Could Newcastle potentially go for somebody better? And then you've got your Emil Kraft, who's played on the of English football. Yes, he hasn't set the world right, but maybe he could go, right, I've learned a little bit. And DeAndre Edlin, I think, still got another year, maybe 2 years on the contract anyway. Is it maybe time to go, do you know what, let's spend a little bit more money on a very, very good right back?
It's a tough one, because if you keep Manquillo on, for me, you've got to get rid of the other two. It's as simple as that. Because you've got Lazaro, who's kind of filling in there, and is a right wing back, and then we change the system. You brought him on very early against Southampton to push up that line because they were getting against 10 men. But Lazaro, I wouldn't sign him as your right back, so that leaves you with the 3. If you do keep Manquillo on, the other 2 have got to go and sign another one for me. I think not any one of those 3 are not good enough to be in that first team for me. They're at best as a squad rotated player. I'll probably pick Manquillo out the 3 because he's actually learned and developed his game better than the others. I think DeAndre Edlin's went sideways. He's picking up more injuries. And Emil Kraft looks absolutely like Bambi on ice when he touches the ball. He's like, ooh, what do I do? And it's like one of them. And he looks better at centre-back when he was playing in the Cups and that, which is concerning. But for me, I would keep him, but there's a lot of ifs around the other two players. But if it came to, like, we signed a new right-back and Yedlin was second choice, I would accept that. So for me, depending, a lot of ifs and buts after Manquillo. But I would have pushed comes to shove.
Would you sell, Eisha, DeAndre Edlin a minimum to keep Javier Manquillo at the football club?
If that was the ultimatum, yeah, like gun to my head, yeah, I would. I don't think Manquillo's got the blistering pace of Yedlin, but for the reasons that Lee listed about his recent form and performances, I think for me Manquillo is the no-brainer. But then at the same time, I just think if we're scratching and starting again and trying to source like a better right back, I don't think that's a priority in terms of the scouting, situation when we're going into the summer transfer window, because I think a lot of time and effort is going into making Steve Bruce sort of put his mark on the team and evolve the team. But in the same breath, I don't think that is a number one priority, and I wouldn't want too much to be changed around. I wouldn't want the core of the squad to sort of be thrown off guard, and I because obviously you lose the dynamic of the squad. The more you break it apart, that is lost. And we do have something good. The good performances we've put in this season, that is down to cohesion in the squad. So I don't think it's a priority to sort of like get rid and get someone new that could do a better job. I think it's about working with what we've got, and I think Manquillo has the potential to be worked on, and Steve Bruce can get the best out of him, because I think a lot of changes will be put in place to evolve the squad for Steve's, philosophy, like coaching philosophy. But I don't think it's a priority to get rid of Manquillo. Yeah.
Fair point, very fair point. Get your comments in as well, or if you're listening on the Radio Northeast, make sure that you WhatsApp your comments in regards to Javier Manquillo when you keep him at the football club. But we finished part one, is obviously about the transfer window. It's obviously going to change for so many reasons, but Lee, the first reason, obviously, it's going to be delayed to whatever point that may be, maybe September or very early October if we're talking about drastic measures. But our price is going to go down because obviously people have lost, or clubs have lost a lot of money, businesses have lost a lot of money. Are people looking for a cheaper deal?
It could go the other way as well. So if you're a striker, if you're a club who needs a striker, and that other club knows that you need that striker, they might stick another 10 million on it. So it can go both ways. I think to start off with, you'll probably see a lot more loans, I would have thought, with money a little bit. What's happening, because obviously BT and Sky, obviously the next round of TV money is going to be due. They're probably hanging on to that, and then you've got the international broadcasting. But I wouldn't be too surprised if you see a lot of loans turn into permanents. That's probably the way that people are going to treat it safe, in particular lower down the leagues. They're not going to splash, the championship clubs are not going to splash out now a 10 million or a 15 million pound striker when money isn't there. But that might change when the TV games do come back, and might be back to where we were a month ago.
Yeah, it is interesting issue, because I don't think many football clubs know how to play this game of poker, if you want to call it like that, because everyone's in the same boat, because they don't know financially how this illness, how this dreadful disease is going to impact the football industry. What are your immediate thoughts?
Well, I was reading that the current value of the current squad has decreased dramatically, and if it does head in that direction, that isn't going to be a good thing in terms of any players we need to get rid of. Yeah, it might work in our favour for new recruits, but I don't think it's a good thing. And I think Lee's right. If it's crunch time and another team knows you're in need of a striker, and that is your sole goal of the transfer window, of course they're well within their means to hike up the price tag on any targets when it comes to the scouting team, who actually, I do want to comment, I'm not sure if you guys know more about it, but I've read up on the non-playing staff at the club have been placed on the furlough scheme, as we've discussed, and that includes the scouting team. So Steve Nixon, the head scouter, it includes him. So obviously all of their trips have been cancelled, and they're unable to work, and they're unable to, of course, visit live games. All of their trips around the world have been cancelled, and that means that the responsibilities and the direct decisions lie solely on Steve Bruce and Lee Charnley, and I don't think that's a good thing, and I just hope that that financial situation sorts itself out ahead of the transfer window, because a lack of a scouting team at the club will have a huge impact. And they're good at what they do. They extensively research every single candidate when it comes to, recruiting new players. And if that is affected financially, then it's not a good thing.
Eisha brings up a really, really good point there, Lee, because obviously our recruitment team are placed on furlough. Newcastle aren't really getting much headlines in regards to putting pressure for Mike Ashley to make a U-turn in terms of likes of what Liverpool have had to do. However, it is disrupting their plans. You would like to think, though, Lee, that they've already done a bit of background research into the type of players Steve Bruce wants at the club next season, considering Newcastle's still a Premier League side.
Yeah, we said last week that normally in March, obviously they scouted Joe Linton last time in March, so they would have already had a list, and Bruce will probably have a few 5 in each position that he needs to improve on, whatever he's looking at. But I don't think it's just Newcastle. I think there's several of other Premier League clubs that are on furlough as well. Some might be work from home. I know they use Y-Scout a lot. Hey, they might even use Football Manager. Who knows? I know Harry Redknapp's used that in the past. I think there'll be some sort of small work happening still, but until the full floor, Newcastle won't be the only club. There'll be several. And then you look further down the league, the Championship and League One. That's not even being considered at the moment. Just being surviving for them football clubs is what priority now at the minute.
Yeah, it is a real shame with everything that's going on, but hopefully everything comes back to a bit of normality with it. Maybe the transfer might get a little bit excited in terms of some players that might want to be brought in. Well, this is the end of part 1. Get your comments in if you're watching this live on all our social media platforms, but if you're listening on Nova Radio North East 102.5 FM, I'll bring you back to Lee.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio North East.
And we are back live. Thank you very much for that, Johnny. So, we'll just keep Andy Carroll, Javier Manquillo, Matty Longstaff. Of course, you'll say yes to Matty. What about Jack Colback or Rob Elliott? Believe it or not, they're still at the club. They're going to be free agents. We've had a couple of WhatsApp messages come through as well. A couple of you that inboxed us. We are not receiving Facebook messages because we've actually turned them off. But yeah, keep your live chat coming. We're going to take a short break because the radio needs it. And then keep your WhatsApp messages in 07476497166. Answer this question if you can. And if you know it, let us know in the live chat in the comments as well. Go and grab a brew. See you in a couple of minutes. And we are back. Question then, who was Sir Bobby Robson's first signing at Newcastle? So people who are listening on the radio, this is your first chance to try and answer that question. Who was it? Let's take a look at the live chat. Well, there's some of you have got that wrong. Sam, well done on getting that right. And then Ming Yi, well done as well. You've got the answer right as well. We'll come back to that actually because I don't want to spoil it for everybody that's listening on the radio. But we have had a WhatsApp coming through. WhatsApp is the only place where you will guaranteed to have your message read out. It's free to message us wherever you are in the world. Lawrence, who's been on the channel in the past, remember Lawrence on the fan cams? He says, hopefully releasing Callback and Elliott will help sort out a contract for Matty. Of course, that'll free up the wages. Good point. He's still on the fence with Andy Carroll, but he wouldn't mind if we were to be taken over. Of course, I don't think anyone would mind Lawrence. I think we all want that to happen. But yeah, extending the player contracts, he was saying for the first three, I believe, is the right thing to do. I presume he means FIFA here. And the next transfer window will be pushed back with the situation so clubs can sign replacements. So for the answer then to your question was, of course, Kevin Gallagher was Sir Bobby Robson's first signing, and he was predominantly played out on the left flank, wasn't he? And he was a grafter, and he didn't cost them much. And I also want to point out as well, it's a good shout as well, as Senchi's mentioned the health condition of Kenny Dalglish, who used to manage, of course, Newcastle for a short period, just over a year and a half. He's unfortunately in hospital at the moment, so again, well wishes to him. Okay, so the next set of live / pre-recorded Skype is, we want to know, and Isha's going to present this once, the first time she's presenting one of the Skype versions, is who's better? And this will probably cause a little bit of debate amongst you. Is it Ben Arfa? Is it David Ginola? Or is it Laurent Robert? It's tough, all French, all moody, but who's the best out of those three? We want to know what is interacting in the live chat, and of course, please send us your WhatsApp messages on 0747 649 7166, and we'll read out your messages after this.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Hey guys, welcome back. Now in this section we're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to talk about the Frenchmen we've been blessed with at the club over the years, and we're all going to argue and explain our case to justify each Frenchman. So there's three, and I think you true fans would have guessed by now which three men really make the shortlist. Obviously, it's my first true love, David Ginola. It's Laurent Robert, and it's Ben Arfa. So what I'm going to do, we're just going to talk about all them three, and then we're just going to discuss our reasons for what they meant to us at the club. So starting with David Ginola, I think for me, what's most important about him at the club was just the pivotal time that he came to the club. So there was a lot of financial backing for Kevin Keegan, and he was there to really change things around for the club. We went from like Division 1 relegation candidates to Premier League title contenders, and I feel like with that financial backing and with those dreams that Kevin Keegan had, he was David Ginola part of that. And I think we spoke about the show last, said for the money that was spent, and he was like £2 million. That was well spent. That was Abad also got Les for £6 million. So if you just, and obviously David Ginola was an integral part of the entertainers. So I think for that fee, that was a bargain. I think he just fit in well with the chemistry of the team, and he hit the ground running. Like that August 95 month, he got Player of the Month. We won our first 4 games of the season. It was just a great start, and he was the perfect addition. Of course, it was a special time. It was when I started supporting the club, and for that reason, he's always been a really special player to me, and I could talk about this all day long. So there is some bias there. I admit that. Sadly, he didn't really get along well with Dalglish, and he wasn't really part of those plans. So then after 2 years, he was swiftly out of the club. I think the most staggering thing for me is the fact that he spent 2 years at the club, and it felt like years. The impact he had, he really left his mark in the club, and for someone that just came in for 2 years and made that much of an impact, he was pretty special. So firstly, I'll come to you. What did David Ginola mean to you, and what did he bring to the club for you?
I'm going to be honest, I didn't know who he was when he first signed, because like yourself, that was my first proper season that I vividly remember, so I don't know what international rights were back then. Did we have Ligue 1? Did we have La Liga on British TV? I don't know.
He came from PSG, but I don't think we would have been broadcast that. Yeah.
So he would have been an unknown, because we wouldn't have seen him at the World Cup because France didn't make it. So it was like it's just an unknown. Les Ferdinand and Warren Barton, in some extent, Shaka Hislop were known better, but you literally came in and set the world alight. Absolutely phenomenal. You talked about Player of the Month in his first one. He scored that great goal against Sheffield Wednesday. And he was. A lot of people forget that he was just as strong on his right foot than he was on his left foot. He could play on the right flank. Not as much as Newcastle. Further on his career he did, but you've seen the goal against Manchester United, which was replayed a couple of weeks back. That was his right foot. So he's both footed, and even back then, he was criticised defensively, like most Kevin Keegan's wingers were. Didn't really help John Beresford out. Shame on John. But then again, Laurent Robert didn't, so I know we'll talk about him shortly. But going forward, probably what he lacked was goals, because for me, he didn't get enough goals. Where if you compare him to Robert is more than double every season, but he would scare you, man. He would that goal in the UEFA Cup against Ferencváros, when the corner comes in, and he started flicking it over people's heads and his volley in the top corner. I mean, that's just crazy. He went on obviously win Player of the Year, the Writers Player of the Year with Spurs, and like I say, we'll talk about Ginola later on in the show for the value, but he's got to be worth 40, 50 from what the seasons he's had in England. But it's a shame the way it happened, because I think if he worked defensively more, I think Dalglish would have kept him, because that's what he worked on, work ethics. But even now, you only spent 2 years, quite similar to Les Ferdinand. They always talk about their time at Newcastle. On any Monday Night Football, whether it's an interview, it's always affectionate, relating back to the time at Newcastle. Even though they only spent 2 years, and even Newcastle fans are still fondly remember Ferdinand. Even Tino is still loved, and David Ginola. So he's a candidate. I know Isha's a big fan, but yeah, it was a great time, and a great time just to being a fan as well. It really was in the 95-96 season.
Jonny, what are your memories of Ginola, and what impact did he have on you as a Newcastle fan?
Well, for me, I was a bit too young. I would have been in nappies, to be honest. So I can only look at many clips, and obviously looking like the Premier League years. But I did catch the back end of his career. Obviously, when he was playing for like Aston Villa and clubs like that. But when you see the clips, the one thing that he had a bit different was that he wanted to get crosses into the box. You don't see many of that nowadays, where as soon as you get the ball, can I get the ball into the box, for the likes of a Shearer and a Ferdinand, etc. So when you look at it like that, that was obviously one part of a fantastic Arsenal he had. And you've got to look at maybe his tricks and his flicks later on, but he had a fantastic chemistry with especially the forward players. And I know they touch about John Beresford, but defensively he didn't do a great deal. But what John Beresford would do is he'd make the overlapping runs so that Ginola could do something spectacular. He sacrificed himself, John Beresford, for the team to go, right, David, what are you capable of? And you look at the goal against Manchester United in the 5-0, and that was the sort of quality he had. And the Man United goal, in particular, Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was one of his first away games for Newcastle. He had so much ability, and I'd love to have seen him in the flesh and actually doing this at St James's, because I think like Ben Arfa to me is one of the best players I've ever seen at the football club, just based on pure talent. But if you're basing that on Ben Arfa and Ginola, it's very, very close.
Also, I forgot to mention as well, Isha, that he was very, very strong. A lot of people forget that, because he used to get kicked. Lee Dixon, Gary Neville used to go flying in on him, and he was so strong that you couldn't physically. Whereas Robert and Ben Arfa, you could just shove them off the ball. You couldn't with Ginola, because he was a 6'2" Hercules, as Isha called him last week.
Yeah, Hercules. I stand by that. I think aesthetically he's Hercules-like, but in terms of his solidity and that he was like made of steel, and I think that makes a huge difference for like the role that he was playing in the squad. And Robert, you're right, there was talent there, but in terms of getting pushed around a little, that did tend to happen. So Laurent Robert, so I'm going to say what I remember him as, and obviously I saw Ginola play live, and Robert, I'm ashamed to say I never actually saw him live, so I can't comment on that live experience and how exciting he was live because I just saw it on TV. But I just remember him purely for wonder goals. He was like a wonder goal specialist. Lee, what do you remember him as?
Again, when he first signed, didn't know much of him. Quite similar trends coming from Paris and all of that. But did you know Laurent Robert used to teach Ronaldinho how to take a free kick? Well, you've
really?
Yeah,
I never knew that.
There you go. You know, fountain of knowledge up here. So Robert and Ronaldinho used to practice free kicks, and Robert would show him how to put power into a free kick.
Wow.
Very similar to Ginola, set the world alight. Different type of player, but Robert would go a lot more missing in games on his downfall. You might not see him for the whole game, get a 4 out of 10, but then the next game you might get a 9 out of 10, score worldy on the way. That's the type of player who's inconsistent. But again, Newcastle fans love Robert. You go onto social media, it's all positive with Ginola, with Robert. Robert had a hell of a foot. If you had a free kick from 40, 50 yards, we would clip it in, Kieran Clark headed down, Fernandez, whatever. But Robert wouldn't. No, that's a shooting opportunity for him. That's a chance on goal. You've probably seen the goal, not the one at home where Goal copied it. That's how good Robert was. Goal copied his goal on the film. But the one that was away and was the FA Cup one, that was miles out against Liverpool. I think we got beat 2-1. And he just cannoned it for 45, 50 yards. And obviously we're talking about his wonder goals against Spurs. Spurs
at 4-0.
Yeah, the crazy back heel in mid-air against Fulham. But he had a hell of a cross on him as well. The amount of crosses him and Solano used to do for Shearer. Shearer was obviously losing his legs. Shearer was, 32, 33 by this stage. He had Bellamy running off him. But Robert, the first thing he would do, he wouldn't beat his man where Ginola would try to. Robert would look up and think, right, how can I get this ball in? That was Robert's.
Yeah.
That was his first option, but that's what I remember of Laurent Robert. It was a sad time that when Souness came in, he wasn't playing as much because he lacked discipline. But you know them iconic moments where he's just in his undies walking around St James's Park. He strips off, and unfortunately, ever since Souness came in, his career went downwards. And he was still a bit part player. He was still, I remember him scoring in the UEFA Cup tie, top corner free kick. But when Souness came in, that was his downfall. And then obviously he became a journeyman at Portsmouth, and then he didn't hit the heights. And again, Robert, talk about Ginola, Robert was just wearing Newcastle gear the other day, training on his Instagram. So,
I saw that on his Instagram story.
Yeah, so he's still affection.
Yeah, you can see that a piece of his heart is still Tyneside, and to wear, to be training, just a generic workout video on his Instagram story, to wear the Newcastle shorts, it's amazing. And I think he regretted how downhill it went with his public spat with Graham Souness, and I think he even regretted his last game where he threw his kit into the crowd and he was in his undies. He had a temperament on him, and that was known, and unfortunately that got the better of him towards the end of his tenure. And if he's not getting along with the manager, we've seen it over the years. It happens. Managers and players don't necessarily get along. It is what it is. And if that's how his career ended at Newcastle, I guess what we can do is just celebrate the good times and how I think he seems like a good team player. I like how he had that partnership with Olivier Bernard. Do you remember when he kicked him in the face accidentally? The power of the shot.
Was it Charlton? It was at Charlton.
Yeah, exactly. What power goes into a shot like that? I think his most powerful shot was measured at 75 miles per hour. I think it's just to be a free kick specialist, and from it was 2001 to 2006, he scored 22 goals for us. Jonny, is he well up there as one of the best Frenchmen we've had?
Oh, he's got to be in terms of pure talent, and as a winger, yes, he has to be near the top. It's funny, like 75 miles an hour. It is a massive, massive speed for a free kick.
Go on, Johnny, mention it then. Go on, I know you're going to mention, aren't you?
No, it was on the quiz that me and Lee had, and I don't know if this will be out before then, but I don't think Lee got it right.
No, I did. I got that one right.
Did you actually?
I actually got that one right.
Great!
One of the only few he got right. It has to be mentioned, but no, he is one of the best French players that we've seen at the football club. But my earliest memory of Robert, in particular, is that free kick against Manchester United where he curls into the top corner in the Leazes end. I don't know if that was his first goal for the football club, but it was one of his early ones for sure. But he was a threat, and he was really, really difficult in terms of, again, very similar, the tricks and the flicks. But like Lee says, he always looked for a shot. He always looked to try and see if he could test the goalkeeper, beat the goalkeeper. You don't get many wingers nowadays that will go, right, I'm going to take him out and have a shot. Like, would lambast Christian Atsu in particular for not doing that. But in terms of end product, again, you had, obviously we're talking about Ginola and Ferdinand, that sort of partnership, but Robert and Shearer is another one that you can look at and go, how many goals did Alan Shearer get from Robert crosses? You know, either it was from cross to header, cross to shot, anything that the keeper or the defenders parried away. He was an absolute menace. And yes, I think Lee touched about the fact that he didn't really get the best send-off in terms of, obviously, his spat with Souness, but in terms of memories, we've not really seen the likes in Champions League, UEFA Cup as it was known back then. You know, he definitely deserved to be on the European stage, and it's a shame that Newcastle didn't get a couple more years out of him, because I think they could have maybe got at least another 2 years out of Repair, and he would have done a very good job for Newcastle. But again, it's just a shame to see how it all ended.
Yeah, and he does speak fondly of his time at Newcastle, so it's always sad in those circumstances when a player has that sense of belonging at a club. He felt at home at Newcastle. He loved the fans. He's made no secret of the fact that he loved the support, St James's Park, and everything that came with the contract. And for that to be cut short is just, yeah, like you said, it's just disappointing. And it's sad that's how it ended, but if we just remember the good times that he had with us, then he really made an impact. I think for me, moving on to Ben Arfa, similarly, when in terms of like wonder goals, like standout wonder goals that will always do the rounds on Twitter, like the odd video of like, remember this, remember that. And for me, like, obviously there was like the Blackburn Rovers goal, and then the wonder goals against Bolton. So like, he had a lot of skill, he had a lot of pace, he was so quick. He had a lot of magic moments, but I think he just lacked a little bit of discipline, and perhaps that's where he didn't go like the full hog. As much talent as Ben Arfa had, and memories I have of him at the club, I unless that can go into a long stretch of time and a consistent displays, then he wouldn't be number one for me. Lee, what do you think? What do you feel about Ben Arfa and his impact?
I think Ben Arfa is more whereas Robert and Ginola are, I wouldn't class them as team players, but they're more team players than what Ben Arfa was. Ben Arfa was selfish in himself. It's all about me. What can I do? And that's not a wrong thing. You want your strikers to be selfish. You wouldn't want Joe Linton passing when he's 1-on-1. You want Joe Linton to finish it. So he was more selfish, more about himself. However, yes, I still think the Blackburn goal is better than the Bolton goal, because he's took on about 7 players from the halfway line. The Bolton one, great. I know Johnny will probably mention Goodison Park when we won 1-0, because he was there. But as he always mentions it. But there was a few, but again quite similar. The fallout is quite similar to the other two as well, where a manager, Pardew, was under pressure. What do we do with him? There was a fallout. There was claims that he was overweight, and then bizarrely was loaned out of Hull, funny enough, under Steve Bruce, and didn't really get a kick, to be honest with you. It was like, how can a talent like we have not play games? And Ben Arfa was obviously then retaliating, I'm not overweight at all, and then he went to Hull, didn't get a kick, and then we knew really that his career sadly was over at Newcastle, and then he went on to do better things. He went on to League and got Player of the Year. He was scoring wonder goals again, got his move to Paris again, quite similar to Newcastle. Didn't really set the world alight, fell out of place because Kabay was there with him. and then he wasn't named in the squad, and then he moved on again, and now he's become a bit of as in La Liga, as far as I'm aware. Getting on a bit now in his early 30s, but again, good times. But if you give me an option of those three, it's so tough to pick. Who would you have? Who would you have in your lineup out of those three? It's so tough, isn't it?
Johnny, who would you have? That's the question.
It's Ben Arfa for me, because
really?
what Ben Arfa could do, if he was at his maximum and his real best, he's world class because of what he can do going forward. Defensively, yes, you don't expect him to track back every 5 seconds, but if you play him in a number 10, just off the striker, with the ability he's got, and maybe you can even play a little bit on the right hand side if you play, say, a 4-2-3-1. He's just got so much ability. He, on his own, could change a football match in Newcastle. Now, you look at the partnership that he had with Demba Ba, Pape Cisse towards the 2011-12 season, in particular. There's a reason why Newcastle very narrowly just missed off the Champions League places. Newcastle were exceptional going forward. For me, the difference between Ginola and Ginola Dalglish and Ginola Keegan and Pardew Ben Arfa, Keegan just managed them better. He managed to get the best out of them by maybe doing things that maybe upset a couple of other players, but he knew that this player was so good in terms of Ginola to get the best out of him. Pardew kind of said, well, I like myself so much, I'm not having somebody else, kind of having one up on me. I think for Ben Arfa, he challenged Pardew and he didn't like it. He said, I'll get you out, I'll get somebody else, I'll get somebody better. And maybe that was his downfall in that sense. But if you're asking me, just based on those three, Robert gets an honourable mention, so does Ginola. But for me, it has to be Hatton Ben Arfa.
So for me, if you push me to shove, I'll go Robert.
Do you know what? I was going to say the same thing, and I know you'll be shocked to hear it. Of course, like Ginola, for me, it was a really special time, and he was part of a defining era. And for me, it's like the standout, most exciting time of the club. And for him to be instrumental in the entertainers and to have such a good relationship with Kevin Keegan. And like you said, Johnny, it's all about the relationships with the coach and the coach being able to get the best out of the player. And in Ginola's sense, like we've seen, he hasn't been easily managed over the years. Like even though at Spurs he had a great time there and he came away with the PFA Players of the Year and whatever at like 31 years old, he was publicly criticised by George Graham. He said he was a single-minded player. Like for the 94 World Cup, Gerard Houllier, he publicly pointed the finger at Ginola for their elimination. So it's evident that partnership with Kevin Keegan and Ginola, he got the best out of him, and that's what we saw. But in terms of that versatile, consistent, talented, skillful player that brought us a lot of goals, I'd have to say Robert for me is number one. And I just think correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was the Premier League's greatest free kick taker of all time. And for him to be part of our squad and for us to benefit from that impact, for me, makes him number one.
For me,
and he loves us.
Yeah, for me, it's because of the assists and goals that probably I'm going to rank it on. Whereas Robert would guarantee you almost 10 goals a season, and none of them.
Yeah.
Yes, none of them were tap-ins, but not just that. He had assists to his name as well. So I would probably but it's so tough. You can flip a coin between the three, but I would probably push it. It's probably because I remember a lot more with Robson here, because that's when I was going to games as well. So that's probably why I'm pushing towards Robert.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I never saw him live. I wasn't lucky enough. But Ginola, when I did see him live, it was just like the beginning of my journey as a Newcastle fan. So I'll always obviously rank him higher. But if I'm being real and true to myself, then Robert is number one for me. Well, what do you think the viewers think? I feel like some people will be screaming at the screen like, no, how can you even say that?
I think it'll be divided.
Yeah?
I think it'll be really divided because it's so close, because younger fans are probably going to go Ben Arfa, whereas if you're 20, 25...
Johnny's a baby compared to us. I feel really old that you're in nappies.
Johnny's not a baby.
But he just said he was in nappies when Ginola started at the club.
Yeah, I was born in 94, so 26 this year.
Let's not give our ages away, because people will
Yeah.
start guessing.
That's not. Well, guys, if you are divided or if you are very certain in your choice, we want to hear about it. So make sure you comment below. And you know the WhatsApp number. Keep those messages coming in. Now we're just going to go back to Lee, who's going to interact with you guys a little bit more. I hope you enjoyed the segment.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Ooh, it's a toughie, innit? Thank you very much, Eisha, for handing that back over. You did a fantastic job, didn't you? Let us know how you think. Eisha got on there. I'm absolutely delighted that she stepped up and presented for that section, which was brilliant. But it's a toughie, innit? Robert, Ben Arfa, or Ginola as well. We've got some of your WhatsApp we're coming through as well. We've actually running a Twitter poll right now, so jump over. We're going to take an ad break. We're going to see what the result of that Twitter is. Newcastle Fans TV on Twitter. Jump on there, get your vote in. And we're going to take a quick ad break and see what the poll is. And also we'll see what all these have been saying in the WhatsApp as well. So get over to Twitter dead quickly and come back.
You're the night sky trying to make me see your stars, but the dark gets lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence. In the dark's all that I see. When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. You're the night sky hiding behind dark gray clouds. I can't figure you out now. I see your blue. There is so much cold in you, and the silence is so loud when you go. I just stay dancing with my shadow all day. Watch the tide. I can't find the point where our two paths align. Right? You're the night sky. I'm trying to see your stars, but I've always feared the dark. Now I see violet. I can feel your silence. You always feel so far when your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound. I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky.
So the question was for the ad break there, which club did Newcastle sign Marcelinho from? Obviously that forgotten Spanish player, centre-back, who didn't really play much because he had a hurt finger. A lot of you have, some of you have got that right. Some of you have said Real Mallorca, which is correct as well. We've obviously running that Twitter poll, as I was touched upon as well. It's very close to running out of time now, and it's just literally starting to end. I'll read a couple of the replies we got. That Dave Mellier over on Twitter says Ginola was the only out-and-out winger for me. Robert was class as well. Ben Arfa for me was as a 10 who was played out wide. NUFC armchair fan says it's got to be Robert. The goals and assists, simply stats don't lie. Ginola represented it and quoted the entertainers, and Ben Arfa could win games single-handedly, but Robert's contribution was just unreal. Just wish he kept his mouth shut before Lisbon away. Yeah, because it all changed when he fell out with Souness. And over on Twitter, in third place, it was Hatton Ben Arfa with just 16%. Second was Laurent Robert with 29%, but quite way out in front was David Ginola with 55% of the votes, which is quite a big jump as well. We've had some WhatsApp messages come through. Actually, I'll read some of your comments as well. Z Devil says Ginola. All day Robert says John. And Taylor, a misspell on the graphic before as well. Sam got the answer right as well, and Real Mallorca as well, who's probably a contender for one of the quizzes that we're running as well. You'll see that later on in the week. We've had quite a few, 5 WhatsApp messages coming through, so remember to keep them coming through. The guaranteed way you'll have your message read out. Lawrence again says, I don't think Ben Arfa's attitude was bad. I just think people used it as an excuse for Pardew to drop him out of favour for Obertan, God almighty, and the Amiobis. Keegan and Sir Bobby Robinson's management of Ginola and Robert made the difference to the player. To some extent I'll probably agree with that, but that just scares me. Obertan and Amiobis on the wing, God almighty. And I'm keeping that clean because this is being recorded for the radio as well on Nova Radio 102.5 FM. Right, a few come through. Mick from Cramilton says Ginola simply didn't score enough for him. So he doesn't get his vote. He doesn't really say who he's voted for, but definitely not Ginola. Jonathan says Robert all day and Souness was a disgrace. How he treated some of his players. No wonder he hasn't been in management since. Ouch. Agree with Johnny, it has to be Ben Arfa. He did things the other two couldn't. Win a game on his own, and that's from Dale. And Isha was fab. She needs to come on more. # women in sport from Zoe. So yeah, Isha's getting a bit of love there, so good on her. Right, so the final section is we're going to, and I'll try, Johnny and Isha, because the laughter is of this, reminisce, have I said that right, about the 96 squad. And this is a good long chat, this one. We're going to try and value each player and what they're worth today. So if you think about David Ginola, we've mentioned, you think about Rob Lee, David Batty, Albert, what would they be worth from 1996? We're going to take into account of what the age is, position, how long they've been in the club, and what the value would be in today's market considering their age and what they've done at Newcastle. This one's a long one. You'll enjoy this one. It's a good discussion. Get your WhatsApp coming through 0747 649 7166. And here we go. I'm representing this one, present this one. Here we go.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
And it's me presenting this one. We've had a different people presenting on each section, and now it's my turn. We're still going to reminiscence. Is that the right word? Is that right? I haven't said that right, have I? But there we go. I knew I'd be corrected. But we'll have a look at, we're not going to do every single player from the 95-96, we're just going to whiz over and talk about the main ones and basically just enjoy the good times, because let's face it, we haven't really had a successful season since Pardew when we finished 5th, and we just want to take a look back and what would these players be worth in today's transfer market. Transfer market just went nuts. You can buy a striker for 40 million who scores 1 goal. So I wonder what we'll price up. I'm going to have a go at pricing these up, majority myself. Johnny will probably jump in as well. And let's see if we can get Isha with the strikers later on. So, speaking of Isha, what do you remember of Pavel and Shaka Hislop, the goalkeepers at the time?
Well, to be honest, the first thing that came to my mind about Shaka Hislop was that jersey, which I used to rock in football training, because that summer that he signed, like we've discussed, that was my sort of beginning, like as a Newcastle fan. So that summer he came in with Rowan Barton, he came in with Ginola, he came in with Les Ferdinand. So it was just an exciting time for like, oh, okay, we have a new goalkeeper. This is exciting. And although I know over that period it was quite on and off, in terms of like Shaka Hislop and Srnicek starting drops in form, injury woes, you name it. So from what I remember of them, I don't feel like our goalkeeping sort of form was solidified until Shay Given came in. I guess that was like 97, and Dalglish brought him in. So there was no sort of like solid go-to goalkeeper for us. But that aside, I did appreciate what they brought to the team, and I was a fan of Shaki Hislop in that jersey. I love that retro jersey.
Yeah, you talked about obviously Shay Given and Steve Harper was going to be breaking through as well, wasn't he? But just as we do as we're going through all these players, so we've completed the 95-96 season. Newcastle comes second. What would you rate and want you to play along as well? Pavel Srnicek only played 19 games that season in total, and had spent 5 years at the club. At the age of 28, I would probably see, because you're right in saying, Eisha, that they were in and out of form. The pair of them, Shaka Hislop couldn't claim throughout the season. He lost his place. He went down to third choice when Dalglish came in. But at the time, in the summer of 96, I would probably have Pavel Srnicek round about 5 to 6 million, because he wasn't. Yes, he was a Czech international, but he didn't claim himself to be number one that season. And Shaka Hislop was a year younger, played a lot more games, played 9 more games that season. I would probably have Srnicek around the same kind of figure. I think you wouldn't have, in today's market, I don't think you would pay more than 6 or 7 million for the pair individually on both of them. And we're going to move over to right back, and Warren Barton, Johnny, you can have this one. 27 years of age, played a lot of games in the 95-96, 38, scored the 1 goal, which was at Anfield in that classic, or was that the following season? I can't remember which one it was. Had just 1 year at the club, obviously. That was his first full season, as Eisha mentioned. Predominantly right back, but he can fill in at centre midfield and occasionally over at left back. What do you remember of him?
Right back was obviously predominantly there. I could remember him from. He was a fantastic save. I know this is based on just on one season, but a fantastic save for Newcastle. And you can tell that he loves the club even to now. Obviously with some pictures on his social media, and he likes the Newcastle Fans TV Twitter page as well. So it's really good that he gets on well with the Newcastle fans now. In terms of his playing position, he was no nonsense right back, but he was also quite smart in the way he would obviously link with whoever's on the right hand side. But in terms of that season, he was an unsung hero. You kind of have to look at it like that. But in this market, I would say somewhere between 10 and 12 million pounds.
That's quite a good fee. I'll move on to Steve Watson, who was a young lad still, even though he'd broke through and has been involved in the first team for almost 6 years. He was only 22 at the end of that season, and the previous season we've seen him play up top, playing him on the right midfield, right back, but this season he scored 4 goals. Of course, he scored twice against Liverpool in 2 different games. One was a tap-in, and that wonder goal where he picked up the ball in his own half and runs through and chips David James in the League Cup. So he played right back, he played centre-back, and he played right midfield in the 95-96, 28 appearances. 9 of those were subs, but at that stage he was still classed as an up-and-coming, promising player. I actually think Watson will be worth more because he's younger, he's English still, and Steve Watson, I would probably, and some people might be surprised by this, I would probably push Steve Watson at that time up higher than Barton, probably 13 to 14 million. And I know that sounds crazy because Watson obviously later on in his career derailed a little bit because his legs was catching up with him, but at that time he was classed as a promising young lad. Johnny, what do you remember of Darren Peacock? Keegan loved him.
He did, he absolutely adored him, and he was probably, I think the joke goes, he was the only defender at Newcastle for a little while. And you look at all the attacking players that Newcastle had. Obviously scored the first goal against Manchester United the season after, but if you're just basing on this season, he deserves a lot of credit because, Newcastle, as Keegan was renowned for, attack, and obviously you hear that on the terraces nowadays, but just on Peacock himself, fantastic defender, read the game very well. He could have just done with a partner, just to we're obviously going to maybe touch about Albert, but if he had someone that was defensively minded, you look at Liverpool with Van Dijk, and he has the partner of Gomez and just work perfectly. If Newcastle had something similar in the 90s, they probably would have won the league because defensively that was where we were kind of missing, was that key centre half partnership that was not going to let in goals. But Peacock, I think he was a little bit older,
He's 28,
£10
yeah.
million. £10
10
million.
million.
£10 million is probably a fair price considering his age.
28 years of age, played the second most games in the 95-96, played 41 including the Cups, couple of goals as well, and he's been at the club for almost 2.5 years. 10 million, let us know if you think if Johnny is talking a load of nonsense in the comments, please let us know. Or if you think he is speaking sense. I'll probably agree around there. I'll probably drop that a little bit, but yeah, in the same boat. Steve Howey, who is remembered for having obviously Sunderland lad, brother played for Sunderland. At this stage, Johnny was 24, a little bit younger than Peacock. This season, he didn't have many injury problems in this season. I know Keegan reverted to wing-backs sometimes and had bringing in Albert, and sometimes it was him and Peacock, but he played 33 games, 1 goal, but he's been at the club for 7 years. What would you rate Howey? Because remember, you got that England call-up, he had a few England caps as well, so his form was probably his best during that season.
Anybody that finishes near the top of the table and gets an England call-up has had a very good season. I think the only thing he was missing that season was the Premier League winners' medal. And obviously that's the hard thing to take. But in terms of that season, yeah, he did play a lot of games. I think he had a lot of experienced players around him who helped him along the way. But talked to likes of Beresford, who was just kind of coming into his peak. Peacock, Albert, Warren Barton, all these players that were regulars in the end. He learned a lot, and it obviously benefited him while he was playing for Newcastle. Again, he's younger, so you're gonna go. You like say, 12 to 14 million pounds because he has got age on his side. Plus, with an England call-up, you could probably look at somewhere maybe even a little bit higher because of course we would take a chance on him. He's already had an England appearance, and especially in the 90s, you actually had to earn to get an England call-up and an England appearance. So I'll go 14 million pounds, but just basically on that.
Who do you think's better, him or Peacock?
Good question. I feel like I'm the wrong person to answer this, but just from what I've seen, I'd probably go Peacock. But again, you would have probably a better opinion because you would have seen him in black and white telly, wouldn't you?
Black and white.
No, there was no. You shall back me up. There was colour TV in the 90s, Johnny's. It might not be flat. It might not be flat screen, but there was coloured with the big bum, as I would call it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Keegan loved Peacock. He would never drop him because he's just out and out defender. But Peacock never got a call up, so strange that one. Of course, Philippe Albert. Everyone loves him. Everybody knows his name, as the song goes. Absolute cult at Newcastle. He's always made in the team of the years. He was 29 by the end of the 95-96. 28 appearances. 5 of them were subs. He wasn't regular, but he wasn't first choice. 6 goals though. And you've seen the goals. Obviously, the following season, the chip against Man United. The Manchester City game, where he's running halfway and he volleys up top corner. There's loads. Spent 2 years at the club, out and out centre-back. People remind him... reminds me the nearest we've got is Fabian Schär. But Albert could do a little bit more going forward. Whereas Fabian Schär liked to bring the ball out, so did Philippe Albert. And he would try and get involved in the attack. So that's probably the nearest centre-back that I would probably class the two. But iconic moments, wasn't there, Johnny, with Albert? All them goals, I mean, none of them were tap-ins. No,
definitely not. But again, I think you probably saw the better of Albert after that season. In terms, obviously, yes, he has the odd flash where you go, wow, that is something special. But in terms of maybe what we saw the best out of him, you'd probably say was probably 96, 97, and then onwards after that. But in terms of a price tag, I'd probably go, just because we hadn't seen the best of them, I'd go 7.5 million.
That'll be a bargain for a 29-year-old, 7.5 million, mind. But defensively, he had a mistake in him. Very similar to Nikos Dabizas, where he'll be reliable, but then he'll have the odd mistake in him. But 7.5 million for Philippe Albert, I would pay that, to be honest. Yeah, definitely. Isha, John Beresford. Obviously, it was a lot of people used to get Barton and Beresford mixed up because they look so alike with the blonde curtains. What do you remember of Beresford?
I think he was really imperative to our style of play, and I think he had quite a unique role. That's what I remember him as. He sort of overlapped with defence with a tag, and he was just key to the whole system that was in place in '96. And I think for me, he was just a really valuable member of the squad at the time, and his ability to do that, because I think he stood out. There wasn't many other players in the team that could do that and that overlap.
Yeah, I think defensively he wasn't the greatest. However, by this time, at the end of that season, he was 30 years of age, 36 appearances, regular, been at the club for 4 years. That Champions League where we tried to qualify, he just went on a rampage and started scoring goals. There's a lot of fans will remember, but being 30 at that stage, I probably think you'll probably get him on the cheap because defensively he wasn't great. I'd probably say between 5 to 6 million for Beardsley because of his age, and defensively, offensively he was great, but defensively no. So let us know what you think on Ward John, who's still at the club. Obviously does the match day, doesn't he, Johnny? So if we move forward to Keith Gillespie, I'll give you Keith Gillespie. No, I won't actually, Johnny. I'll give you Robbie Elliott. What do you remember of Robbie Elliott?
I was fortunate enough because I was a little bit older then.
His first spell.
Newcastle.
Do you remember much of his first spell?
Bits and bobs. Obviously, when he came back, obviously that was probably more predominantly how I would remember him. But he was a stalwart. He wanted to do well for the club, and defensively, he never really let you down. I think that's probably the one thing I would remember. Again, he had a lot of experienced players around him. I don't know how many appearances he had that season. I'm sure you'll probably tell me.
I will in a minute.
But again, he would have had a lot of experienced pros around him, very similar to Steve Howey. So he was only going to get very good experience, but I think what he would have had to learn on is how can I help the likes of a Ginola or a Gillespie that you might go on to a little bit better. How can I help them in terms of, do I need to always be with them in terms of attacking wise, or can I actually just sit back and maybe be a bit more solid at the back? But look, very, very easy on the eye defender, but didn't really cause a lot of mistakes, which is obviously a merit for him.
Yeah, he was only 23, just 10 appearances that season. He did actually play a lot more the following season because Beresford had an argument with Keegan, and Robbie Elliott went on to score 7 goals the following season. So that goes to show you. So Rob Elliott, being that young, if a squad player, I don't think he'll get many more than 4 million at that time. I think the following season.
That's what I was going to say.
The following season, when he went on that rampage, it probably upped his hike price a little bit. Keith Gillespie, Johnny, you'll probably know him a lot more throughout the years. At this stage, at the end of that season, of course, 18 months prior, Andy Cole left and Gillespie came in. Still a young lad, at the end of that season, just 21, 32 appearances, 4 goals. An out-and-out winger, again, in modern-day football, you don't have them nowadays because everyone comes inbound. His role was literally beat his man, whip it in, over and over and over. And what do you remember?
Keegan loved about him, especially with Ferdinand in the team. How many goals did Ferdinand get off his wingers? I'd love to know that stat, but yeah, he's one player that you could tell that Keegan was desperate for, and the fact that he was willing to sacrifice Andy Cole for him tells you how much Kevin Keegan rated Keith Gillespie as a player. You could name your price, especially at that time. I think obviously there wasn't a massive price tag because obviously with Andy Cole went the other way and we got about £7 million for him. So I think Keith Gillespie at that time, if you were to sell him, you could probably ask for around about 20 to 25 million pounds because of what he gives strikers. And if he was in an even better team, I think 20-25 million pounds for sure.
That's big. That's bigger so far. Young lad as well, British, of course. British players go for daft prices now, and obviously we're seeing a couple of years later where he destroyed Sergi against Barcelona, so we can see what he's capable of. But that's a big price. Let us know what you think in the comments about that one. We're going to come back to you against Johnny. I'll come at Isha in a moment. Rob Lee, he was 30 by the end of this year. He scored 9 goals from 40 appearances. The previous season he got into double figures as well. Spent 4 years at the club, predominantly a centre midfielder, would fill in the odd time at right midfield if Gillespie wasn't there. He was your modern day, didn't get as many goals as Frank Lampard, but was your modern day midfielder trying to break into the box and score goals, wasn't he?
Yeah, Mr. Reliable. He deserved a trophy at Newcastle for his tenure. I think the biggest compliment you can give Rob Lee when you look back now is the fact that Roy Keane mentions him as a player that he didn't like facing, and he always found it a tough task to get one over him. But he made the simple things look very simple, but he made the hard things look very simple as well. Again, he had some fantastic players around him, but you look at Rob Lee and you go, that's the kind of player that you want on your team. He should have got more England caps for sure. But ultimate box to box midfielder, and he obviously got a few goals as well.
He was in England. He started to be an England regular because he got in the Euro '96 squad. So he's started to become a squad regular, but on today's market, yes, he's 30, but he's guaranteed you 10 goals every season at this stage. How much would you pay for Rob Lee?
I'd probably pay about £15 million, and that's only because age is not on his side.
Okay, that's a fair sum. Isha, Paul absolutely loves David Batty. Loves him. Oh, you never shut up about David Batty, about choking Nicky Button, hard tackles. He was very much a hard man, worker man. When he used to have his football training, he didn't like go and speak to the cameras. He just rather go home and play with his kids. That's the type of, and that's why you don't hear from David Batty nowadays. He's a family man. But signed only 6 months earlier from a Premier League winning side, that was Blackburn the previous season. Played every game, came in straight away, scored against Blackburn, funny enough, 11 appearances. And what do you recall of David Batty? And because we don't really have many midfielders like him nowadays, because football's so changed, he was your old school defensive midfielder, hard man. 28 years of age, what would you remember of him?
Well, like you said, he always gave 110%. He was so efficient and effective in what he did. He won tackles like no tomorrow. I feel like at that time, he was like the enforcer, and he was just at the core of the squad. And yeah, out and out defensive midfielder.
Yeah, England obviously, remember missing the penalty against Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a great night for Bats. But about £15 million as well, and Paul's going to kill me for saying that low. Going back to Kieran Clark, Lee Clark, 24 years of age, 33 appearances, 2 goals, 7 years at the club despite his young age. But when Batty was signed, a lot of those were substitute appearances. Again, I would probably say with Jonny that Mr. Reliable despite being young.
Yeah, agreed. He was really, really enthusiastic, and he put in a lot of hard work. I think the best thing about him was that where Alan Shearer, he voiced how frustrated he got at times with David Ginola. I feel like with Lee Clark, he read the game really well, and he read what Ginola could give, and he just allowed him to do what he did best. Like, he did all the dirty work, and he just allowed Ginola to just flourish. And for that's what I remember him mostly as, along with 100% enthusiasm. And
we all remember Lee Clark wearing that shirt when Sunderland got to Wembley, don't we? It was a Geordie paying on a Macam, I believe it was. So I'll say that politely for the radio. And Lee Clark was then sold, and then probably did some good things at Fulham as well. He was made captain there. So, but of course, he came back to the club for a second spell for that one season. But for Lee Clark, in and out that side, I think you'll be lucky to get 7 to 10 million in between that bracket for Lee Clark. I think that'll be a realistic fee for him. Peter Beardsley had a fantastic career. Obviously, World Cup 1990. Came back to Newcastle when he was 32. By the end of the 95-96, still chipped in with 11 goals. And that's impressive for a 35-year-old. 40 appearances, so a 1 in 4. And he played in that number 10 role behind Ferdinand. And then he was moved into right midfield when Gillespie was dropped to the bench. He could also fill in at centre midfield. But what a talent, man. What a talent.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most staggering thing is his age, to be honest, because at that age, I don't know, are there any players at that age who can perform to that ability currently in the Premier League now? I can't think of any. He was very, very important for us during the mid-90s with his intricate passing. He could create something out of nothing, and he was just so selfless in the way he played, and it's the age he brought to the squad and his leadership skills, it just helped bring everyone together, and it helped with the dynamics of the talent, and we had great talent during that time. So yeah, I think he was key in all of that.
What wasn't blessed, he never was with pace, but however, the Beardsley shuffle where he can get past the player, the amount of assists he used to set up Ferdinand. Andy Cole said that he wouldn't have scored as many goals at Newcastle if it wasn't because of Beardsley, keep setting him up. I even still think at 35, I still think you would get up to 10 million from him. I really do, despite his age, because you try and comparisize and against another. You probably say David Silva is the kind of similar age and the kind of same mould of player. Beardsley could beat his man better, Silva's probably got a better pass, but that's probably the nearest comparison I would make. But I still think you would get over 10 million for Beardsley, because he still was a regular even in the following season when Shearer was in this. You had Shearer, Ferdinandino and Beardsley in the same side, and yes, he was moved over to the right midfield, but what a talent. I think you'll get minimum 10 million despite his age. David Ginola, Eisha, this is all. Take it away. It's all you.
I just think that summer, obviously that was a really magical summer that he came in, the summer of 95. And I just think, we've spoken about this before, the way Kevin Keegan was able to get the best out of him, he'd built up this exciting reputation in Europe. He had attracted a lot of attention from Spanish giants because of his European performances over the early 90s. So for the likes of like Barcelona, Real Madrid to have interest in him, and for us to like nab him at £2.5 million, I think it was just perfect. He fit in perfectly, the chemistry worked. He provided a lot of crosses into the box, and although, like we mentioned, Alan Shearer was slightly frustrated with him at times because he did overcomplicate crosses, I think for 2.5 million and for the exciting, inventive wing play that he brought to the team, I think he was a bargain. I think he was worth a lot more. I think £20 million at least in this day and age.
I think you could possibly even go higher. I know he's 29 by the end of that season, but Barcelona wanted him. Bobby Robson wanted him. That came out in the Chronicle not so long ago, that Bobby Robson wanted to take him to go and join Barcelona, and that tells its own story. But despite him only scoring 5 goals from 40 appearances, he just set the world alight, didn't he, on that first season?
He did, and he couldn't have had a better 6 months. Like, even the first month when he won that Player of the Month award, he hit the ground running. He didn't have any teething problems. He fit right in, and he was just perfect. Like, the entertainers, he was just an integral part of the entertainers.
Yeah, it's a shame because obviously when Dalglish came in, we've touched upon it already. I won't go over it too much, but Dalglish got rid of Beardsley and got rid of Ginola and Ferdinand it was disappointing in one summer. That was one summer. Speaking of the strikers, we'll have both inputs here. Johnny, Tino Asprilla, bit of a madman, of course. What do you remember him by?
You can see the pictures, and obviously the Barca and a hat-trick later on, but if you look at the 95-96 season in particular, coming in with that big brown coat, he reminds me of something like Del Boy would wear, wouldn't he? And I think obviously he had talent, there's no doubt about that, and obviously you see the goals that he scored, like the one against Liverpool where it's over his shoulder at Anfield and he puts in the top corner from so far out. Those are the sort of memories you can remember. Obviously people have that argument whether his signing actually cost Newcastle the title, and maybe they could have got somebody more defensive minded, and the fact that they moved Beardsley out of position to accommodate Asprilla. But what a fantastic player on his day, and someone that you look at and go, you get your bum off your seat for sure, no doubt about that. Yeah,
he was a bit of a madman. He was voted 6th best player in the world in 1993, and that tells you the talent that Asprilla had. Didn't set the world alight. Yes, he did on his debut against Middlesbrough. He only chipped in with 3 goals from 14 appearances. The dynamics of the team changed, didn't it, Eisha? Because Johnny touched upon there, Beardsley was moved to right midfield. Lee Clark was a regular. He was taken out because of David Batty. Is it harsh to blame Tino for our run-in where we came second?
Majorly. I've always thought that. I think the quality that he brought to the team, and he's a scapegoat at the end of the day. I really think the finger being pointed at him for being the reason, we didn't win that 95-96 season is totally unfair. I really think he brought a lot of quality to the team, and it's not fair to pinpoint that down to one player for a reason not winning.
He was a skillful player, not your out-and-out goal scorer. You would probably say he's a number 10, really, where he'll slot in your striker, go past a player. Fantastic in Europe, in the UEFA Cup and the Champions League as well. Because he was only 27, he was still quite new, still well known in Italy. Him and his partnership with Zola for Parma was another level. But I probably think on today's market with Asprilla, you'd probably get about 20 million upwards, even possibly more. The only thing that lets him down is not a natural goal scorer, but I think you've got to start chipping him more. But I would probably say 20 to 25 million in that bracket you can get Tino for. Les Ferdinand.
Oh, you love him.
I love Sir Les. He was my first hero. Again, didn't know massive amount about him because I was only just getting into football. But at the end of the season, he was 30 years of age. However, he just banged in 29 goals. And from 44 appearances, 1 year at the club. Even though he's 30, Johnny, you'd be pushing quite big sums to get Ferdinand, wouldn't you?
Well, you're even looking at nowadays where who do you pay the big bucks for? It's the goal scorers, it's your strikers, and you'd have to look at around about £30 million minimum. And I know that might be quite a lot for someone that's approaching 30, but he scores goals, and he scores all types of goals: right foot, left foot header. You know, he was fantastic in the air. If he had, say if he played for Man United, which he nearly did before he joined Newcastle, you would have had Beckham on one side and maybe even Keith Gillespie on the other side. Who knows if he was still at Newcastle or Man United at that point? But you would have so many good players around him, and look, the crosses that he was getting from Gillespie on one side and the likes of Ginola on the other. You know, it was a dream for him, so he was always going to get chances. And the good thing about Beardsley, and the fact that maybe I'm saying £30 million, is because we look at some of our strikers now that you wanted maybe 4 or 5 to get a goal. Ferdinand was 1 and 2 most of the time. If you had 2 chances, you'd expect one to go in, very similar to Shearer, and I know we're going to touch about him in a second, but Ferdinand for me is probably your modern day, if you're looking at somebody that you go very similar to.
There's probably not many about.
There's not actually.
Would you say Jamie Vardy at a push?
Nah,
possibly, but again, it's a tough one because you don't see many players that head the ball as well as he does.
Oh, he was a great header of the ball. He could get higher than anyone else.
Edin Dzeko, maybe when he was at Man City, you could kind of almost relate to him a little bit, but I think Ferdinand was probably better in the Premier League anyway.
I think 30 million is a tad harsh, because Isha, how much would you pay for Aguero right now?
Nowhere near 30 million, yeah.
Aguero's 32, and he's got similar kind of goal scoring ratio to what Ferdinand had.
Yeah, but then how old is Aguero?
32.
Oh, 32, okay.
So would you pay 40 million for Aguero, or would you go even more?
Probably even more, to be honest. He's very consistent. I mean, he's a permanent fixture in my fancy Premier League team.
Oh, I know you had to get that in there.
That's always a good indication of, like, I mean, his consistent displays over the years, I don't think age is a number for him, really. He's just one of those players that's been able to keep up his form well into early 30s.
And it helps, obviously, having great players around him who are feeding him in. So David Silva, a.k.a. Peter Beardsley, Les Ferdinand, Sergio Aguero, I'm going to say 50 million up. Even though he's 30.
Really?
Yeah. Because he's guaranteed you. Even that following season with Shearer there, Ferdinand still got mid-20s.
How old is Ferdinand?
Ferdinand was 30 by the end of that season.
See, that's like I know what I'm saying. You pay the best for in terms of goal scorers, but how many? If you're any club, if you're paying a lot of money for a 50-year-old, but a 30-year-old, you want at least 4 good seasons. Could Ferdinand guarantee you 4 seasons like he's just done before, from 30 to 34? I would say that's probably a 15% chance at best. Not to say that Ferdinand couldn't do it for at least 2 years, but I don't think he. To get value for money.
But at that stage, at the end of that season, he's proven with QPR, who were mid-table relegation side, came and playing with better players than Newcastle, proved it again. I think it was to get another move to a top side, like a Man United, or even go abroad. I still think he's going to guarantee you with service. So I would say, you're saying 30, Johnny?
I'll go a bit high after that, because he's probably worth more than Andy Carroll and what Andy Carroll was back in the day. So I'll go 40.
I'll say 50. Isha, what are you saying?
Well, before we did this, I was thinking around 35 to 40. And I think, that's probably, I'd probably stick with that, to be honest. I think that, I wouldn't say we got the best out of him pre-96, but we saw that was such a good season for him in 95.
Yeah.
And I think it's so nice that he inherited that number 9 shirt from Cole. He had an absolutely remarkable 95 season, and then how Kevin Keegan forecasted that attacking partnership could work with Shearer, and it all just like fit into place.
So you're saying, are you going to kind of push it to 40?
40, yeah.
So we'll say 45 as a 3 then, because I said 50. So, and the main man, Alan Shearer, we know what he went on to do at Newcastle, but the The previous 3 seasons at Blackburn, he was just smashed them in 30 plus every season. He was still just turned 26 when he was signing. Brand new, £15 million world record. If that is today's market, you see people like Neymar go for daft fees. What we're talking here, Johnny? What would you give us a figure?
Is Shearer at his best?
But he was at his best by the time we signed him.
He just won the Euro '96 Golden Boot,
And he came 3rd in the world.
I'm gonna go 100 million.
I was pushing it up towards that. Yeah. I mean, how much?
I'd say 200 million.
£200 because he was guaranteed goals, and what you paid is what you got. Headers, left foot, right foot, battle defenders. You know, he was a constant threat. And look, Newcastle got their weight in gold, 1.5 million a season for Alan Shearer. Yes, he had a couple of bad injuries, but he well and truly made up for it. And in this current day, you'd probably say Harry Kane is probably the most similar. But I think people recognise how good Shearer was when you look at the likes of Aguero, Rooney.
They can't touch him.
They're not close enough to battling for 260 goals at the minute. So he's definitely going to be the Premier League goal scorer and at the top of those charts for a long, long time. Unless Harry Kane stays in the Premier League all his career, he's probably the only one that could possibly be because he's young enough.
Perfectly put on, because Harry Kane, funny enough, is 26, Isha. How much would you pay for Harry Kane to bring him to your club?
I think around. If I remember correctly, when this was discussed with Spurs, they wouldn't let him go for anything less than 300 million. I think it was, or it could have been 400 million. No, I think it was 300 million. And I'd value Alan Shearer at 200 million.
Do you think it'll have to be another world record fee again to get him?
Sorry?
Do you think it'll have to be another world record fee to go and get Shearer in his prime?
Yeah, I think so. I think just because also the high demand he was in at the time as well, and that would be the same now, that would mirror now. Like Alex Ferguson wanted him at Man United. The Euro '96 campaign for him to bring all that media attention to Newcastle and everything that came with it, his leadership qualities. He was a natural born goal scorer. He scored, he provided. It was just like the full-on package of a record-breaking player, and he was worthy of breaking the record. I think he would do in this day and age as well. Yeah,
Barcelona wanted him and said they went for Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo. So we're talking 200 million, 100 million. I would probably say I'll go in the middle. I probably think 150 million will get Shearer in his prime today, and that'll be a world record, because people might look at it and think, oh, you're joking, but because of the inflation of prices, Shearer just is on another level.
Oh, and in today's day and age with television rights and endorsements, sponsorship deals, all of that in addition that would come with it would be enormous for any club. So we have to bear that in mind, because back in the day, it wasn't like that. The magnitude of sports broadcast and all the revenue that comes with a high-profile player, it's just multiplied by 10 times. So
100 million for Johnny, 200 for Isha. I'll go down the middle. We'll say 150 then. Meet us halfway then. I think that'll be world record fee because he guarantees the goals. But that is it. We have reminiscence. I haven't said that word again, right? Have I? So I'll just reminisce. I'm just going to keep saying it wrongly to keep the joke going. But that is it. I'm going to hand you back to myself to league. Of course, we want to know what you think of our ratings. Remember that season back fondly, because we haven't had many great times after Sir Bobby's tenure. But I'm going to head back to myself, which sounds weird enough, and take it away myself.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio North East.
And we are back, people. Hello. We are back for the final 10 minutes or so. I'm just going to quickly run through some of your live chat. That was a good discussion on the 96 season. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well. We've had a few WhatsApps come through. I'm just going to quickly fly through these as well. We've got 5 to read out. Here we go. You will get £20 million for Rob Lee. Age had nothing to do with it back then. Fair enough. David Batty's worth £35 million upwards. There's no one like him. And there's another one that's come through saying the way Dalglish dealt with Pedro was shocking. He's a legend, and that's from Paul. And Antonio from Milan says, great show, lads, stuck here in Italy, but this has been brilliant to remember the good old days. Thank you so much. That's a nice word. Thank you very much, Antonio, for that. And the final one from Wickham Lad, that's actually not far from me. How much would Gaza be worth in his peak in 1996? It's a very good question, that, but considering Gaza would have just had his Euro 96, you're probably talking 70 million upwards, wouldn't you? After the tournament that he just had, you would have been a big fee for that. So thank you very much for your WhatsApps as well. Isha's in the live chat. Nice to see Isha as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. See you next time. Stay home, stay safe, take care. So thank you very much, Isha. You're absolutely brilliant. So thank you for helping us this week, and of course Jonny as well. But I just want to touch upon something a little bit positive with this pandemic, and I want to talk about, first of all, it's not going to be political, so don't worry, is about Matt Hancock, who, funny enough, is a Newcastle fan. A few weeks back, not even that, was it 10 days or so ago, Matt Hancock, careful what I say, described that the Premier League players should be helped out. No, the Premier League players actually get a massive chunk of their wages taken out because of tax, so they do actually contribute towards the NHS. And obviously there's been a few players that have bitten back against Matt Hancock. Come on, Lee, you can say it. I know it's been a long show, but I want to highlight a couple of Newcastle players, and they're both done absolutely fantastic. I want to highlight Danny Rose in particular. Danny Rose has donated over 50,000 now to two hospitals, one in North Middlesex and one in Doncaster, where he's from, which is absolutely incredible gesture, and it's positivity that there is actually some nice footballers about who actually do care. He also delivered pizzas to the North Middlesex University as well, and on top of that, it's not on that graphic, Danny Rose actually then donated over 10,000 to domestic abuse, because it's a horrible figure, but there will be more domestic abuse with people spending a lot more time together indoors. So that's an incredible thing and a human thing to do for Danny Rose. So big shout out to Danny Rose for that. And also I want to touch upon is Jacob Murphy and his brother have done some fantastic things. This is them dropping off prescriptions from your likes of your chemists, your Boots and so on. Fantastic to see them, and this is around the Norfolk area, in around Norwich, going across to Ipswich, to even pushing maybe in Great Yarmouth the other way. Fantastic gesture by Jacob Murphy and his brother, because they're stuck indoors, they can't get out and get their medical needs, and it's again another, I want to highlight some positive stuff that footballers are actually doing. So it's absolutely fantastic to see this as well. I want to see what you're saying in the live chat about the lads as well. Century says bless them. Isha obviously in the live chat as well. Lawrence says about Harry Kane, if Kane does, you hope he does goes to Real Madrid, so he doesn't want him to break Shearer's record. It's getting talked about a little bit more though, isn't it? Every time Harry Kane hits a milestone or a hat-trick or gets to 20 goals or 15 or whatever, that's always talked about quite a bit. And will he go on and break that record? It's a good question, because if Harry Kane stays fit, and I think he will if he stays in England, 100%. Just going back to, again, fire in your live chat before we wrap up, the players again, of course, you would have seen this, a statement from the Premier League, the COVID-19, and I think you've got to give praise to actually Jordan Henderson. I know he's a Mackem, don't get me wrong, but he is one of the leads, and I believe James Milner is also the Liverpool duo, have pushed this, and this is a really, really nice thing for them to do. It really, really is. And you know, as I've touched upon already, that the players that keep getting criticised over and over for not donating, we're seeing a lot more now, especially at this time in the situation now where we still don't know what's happening with lockdown, that it's getting delayed further. You know, you can't go out and see your loved ones. Everyone's got their own story. People have lost people as well, so it's not great at the moment. And it's just, I want to highlight some of the positives that, yes, footballers again have loads of money, but they are actually doing some good stuff here. And people like Matt Hancock, you know, who come out and said this, just we need to be a little bit careful with his words going forward, because a lot of people have bitten back, and also people like clapping for the carers and hospital and key workers at 8 p.m. It's a good thing. So it's uniting us under a difficult situation at the moment. But that is it. It's a wrap. Just quickly touch upon what is coming up on the channel. Still loads of content on Newcastle Fans TV. We've got the final quarter-final tie with me and Jonny. That's a bit controversial, that one, so that'll be tasty. And then we're filming the 2 semi-finals for the quizzes as well. So that's happening. Then the final, and I think there's also I don't want to give too much away, but there's like a big community from other Newcastle outlets for a quiz as well. We've also got me and Sam have done a video on our favourite memories of what we own, like memorabilia and stuff like that. So that's coming to the channel as well. We've got loads of stuff. I know the news isn't great at the moment. We've just got to stick by each other and support one another, and that's probably a good thing that's come out of the UK under this pandemic, is that a lot more people are united, which is brilliant to see. It puts and I know this might sound cheesy, but it puts the great back into Britain for me, saying all of this as well. But I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for all your comments as well. Bit of a hiccup with the first stream, so I apologise about that as well. Stay safe, everyone, and stay tuned to Newcastle Fans TV and across our socials. Take care, everyone.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio North East.